And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it so much that you came back for more. Folks, that was a brilliant decision. I'm going to tell you why. Because we have a lot more for you. And the reason we have a lot more for you is because this is the podcast. It's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. Our guest today, amongst many other things, is wait for it, a podcaster. See, you guys are brilliant. You figured it out. So, this is the place where we all come together to raise each other up, and this is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So, let's get sailing and bring in our awesome guest today. I could talk to this lady for hours, I can already tell. So, I can't wait to have her on here. She is the founder of something called the New England Podcasters Group. Which also has a pod garden attachment to it. We're going to tell you all about it. You guys are already going, what? The what? The who? She's the host of Don't Be Caged by Your Age, where she battles against the concept of ageism. And I can't wait to talk about that since I'm kind of an old guy myself. And folks, just please welcome to the program, Ande Lyons. Ande, how you doing?
Rory, I'm doing great. Thank you for that delicious intro. And can we all agree, listeners? We could listen to Rory all day long. How about that voice? Oh, it's wonderful. So
You are
thank you
too
so
kind.
much for having me on your show to talk about something I am so passionate about and been in love with for over 13 years.
Yeah, you've been doing this for a while. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started in this whole thing.
Well, I'm a four times founder, so launching things is my jam. But in 2012, I had a business that I knew would need a companion podcast for. And I have to tell you, Rory, I was really nervous. I knew I had to start this, but I was really nervous. So, what I did to shore up my courage was to have a producer, and I paid her. And 52 weeks later, I was very comfortable with the medium, said goodbye, and have been producing and hosting my own shows ever since on all the different platforms. And what I love most about podcasting is how easier it's become since when I started in 2012 to today. And then the affordability of it all is ridiculous. It's like one person eating out. That's all it costs to have a podcast, a monthly podcast. It's so darn easy. And as always, it's one of the best ways to connect. And also, if you're shifting industries, we don't always stay in the same industry. We like to try different industries out as we grow up. And it's a great way to get into another industry. People will return your phone call or your email when you say, "Hey, you want to be on my
Mm.
podcast?" They'll always say yes.
There's a huge amount of credibility nowadays that comes with
Yes.
having that podcast. Yeah. And was it that way when you first started, or was it more of like an oddity? Like you have a what? You've got a what?
Well, people knew about them. I think people were, I think, more frightened by being on a podcast actually in the beginning then. They were like a little trepidatious, but folks knew social media had been around long enough that they knew, and their PR people knew, they needed to get that link back out there, that social proof out there. And podcasts were great ways to do that, provided you were a decent enough host.
Wow. All right. I love that. I love the caveat too. You do still have to be a good host to make
You
everything
really.
work. That's great. The no, you've got obviously your podcast now. Don't be caged by your age, which I've had a chance to listen to. I love what you're doing there.
Thank you.
Let's start with tell us about that, and then maybe we'll go
Oh,
backward and we'll go forward from there. But
that's
don't be
great.
caged by your age. What's that?
Right. It's one of my favorite stories because I, as a startup founder, began coaching, mentoring founders from around the world. And I actually had a monthly pitch event here in Boston for founders, 99 seconds to get up and pitch their business to a live audience and investors. And oh my gosh. So I was really firmly entrenched in it. But what would often happen was I would hear well meaning folks say, "Okay, explain your business as if you were telling your grandmother or grandma." And I would just get so darn frustrated by that comment for many reasons. One, it was never grandpa. So to me, that was gendered ageism. Two, I am 69 and feeling mighty fine, and I love aging out loud. but I was afraid to age out loud then. So I was afraid to jump up and say, hello, I came of age in the 70s when we were building the technology that you have today. We went from slide rulers to calculators. People can't imagine a handheld calculator, but back in
Right.
the day, that was a really big deal. We went from dial phones to dial up to live streaming, right? We went from manual typewriters, clickety clack, to, again, computers going so fast. We had to learn how to use printers, which back in the day you could get covered with ink easily. We had to learn how to use copiers. And then we had to train everybody. This is all technology. My generation, has had to adjust to technology more than any other generation before. So to get that bias that we're stupid around technology, that upset me. And then, of course, I was afraid to let anybody know I was their age, that I was this old, right? And so finally I said, this has got to stop. So when I turned 66, I ordered the US Route 66 sign. I think, does it go through Indiana? I think so.
It might, yeah.
Yeah, from Chicago all the way to San
Right.
Diego. And I held it in front of me and I took a photo. And you can even see, Rory, the look in my eyes is, will you still love me now that you know that I'm this old and respect me? I was really nervous. And I wrote a post that said, don't be caged by your age. And I talked about gendered ageism. I talked about ageism, especially in the tech industry. And the post went viral. And the
Wow.
comments blew my mind. And so I thought, okay, I need to talk about how to thrive after 65, especially with the bias in corporate that was beginning to waste generations of talent because they assume that ambition dies after the age of 55, right? And we, growing up when we did, actually, our grandparents were really old at 65 and 70.
Sure. Yeah.
But today, no, okay? Not our parents. They were really thriving. And that greatest generation were doing remarkable things after 65. So we had some examples there, but mostly we, between society, Hollywood, our generation growing up with all those signals, were looking as, oh my gosh, retirement. I mean, that's it. We're out of the loop. And it was really distressing so many people and myself included. So I felt that showcasing folks who were shattering age related expectations and stereotypes would help amplify look what you can be doing, right? I had this wonderful woman, Ginny McCall, at the age of 64. She says, gosh darn it, I want to learn how to do a pull up. Yes, her daughter was well known on the TV show American Ninja. I think that's what it's called, right? America's
Okay.
Ninja. Anyway, so she said, I want to do a pull up. Well, it took her a whole year to do a pull up, but then she really got into the ninja athleticism and she made, by the time she was 72, the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest female ninja athlete.
Oh, wow.
So we talk about that, but we also talk about people who have gone blind and how they're thriving. I talk to folks who have all new careers doing all sorts of things. And the bottom line is to help people find pathways so they can fuel their passion, fuel their purpose, and fuel their pocketbook.
Nice.
Because the World Health Organization came out in 2021 saying that retirement is an epidemic causing society's billions of dollars because people were retiring and feeling hopeless and helpless.
That sounds about right. So, I even the way you're presenting it right now, and this comes through really hard in your podcast. I listen to folks every day who are some sort of activist for a particular cause and so on, but trying to promote your activism for whatever your cause is, and not getting into being a victim about it is incredibly tough. It seems like that's a very fine line for folks to walk, and as soon as they start talking about how hard it is to get past whatever the activism point is, it's a slippery slope into, sort of being a victim. You are nowhere near that. I mean, you are like excited about this, activism and this point you're trying to make about, ageism is real. It's a very real thing. And, hey, but here's how I'm thriving anyway. Is that by
Right.
design or is that just how you are?
Well, I've always been very self-directed. I call myself a flotation device, so it doesn't mean I don't know
Ah,
how to go down to the depths of despair, but for some reason my DNA package always has me bouncing back up to the surface. So I tend to look out at the world with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. And yes, I am an extrovert, so I'll talk to the cashier somewhere and be thrilled.
I love it.
But for me, especially as a woman, having my own incredible indoctrinated fears about what I can't be doing now, and sure as heck, don't be telling anyone your age, and flipping that script and encouraging, especially women, go ahead, be the oldest person in the room.
Hmm.
Okay, get out there. And I really love promoting intergenerational relationships. I have a dear friend who's 30 years younger than me, and the reciprocity is there. We learn from each other, we grow together, we do fun things together, we laugh together. That is important. And sure, I understand senior living communities and all of that are great, but you still need to get out with the different generations. And Rory, what we've learned from the data is corporations that bring in folks who are over 60 and sometimes over 70 and older, they have better revenue and profitability because the wisdom of that person who has already been through ridiculous economic conditions,
Hmm.
they're unflappable. They know how to get new customers under horrible circumstances. They know how to get through really tough times. Our 30 and 40-year-olds are innovative, excited, high energy, but they have not been faced with real life as well as real economic challenges like the older person. So you bring that wisdom in and you combine it with the different generations, and it's pure gold and fuel for a company.
Hmm. I mean, that sounds great. And I love the idea behind it, especially as someone who's a little bit older. But, the whole time you're sitting here talking about this stuff, I'm literally being triggered and flashing back to
Yes.
before I went full time in podcasting, the difficulty I had,
Oh,
even with all my experience and everything, all my successes over the years,
and with all
of
due
getting any kind
respect,
of a job.
Rory, yeah, and with all due respect, Rory, a white guy.
Yeah.
It's so much
Yeah.
harder for women, people of color. It is just awful. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that tough experience, but it did lead you to this podcasting full time, which I love for you. But that's why we have to help people think outside the box. So, okay, maybe you're not brought on as an employee. How can you position yourself as a 1099 freelancer, right?
Right.
That wise person that's being brought on to add value. So it's important to start thinking about different ways you can get in. My husband's 74. He got picked up by a startup, not an early startup, is well into its fifth year, but they needed his industry knowledge, right? Because a lot of times the older adult is going to have industry knowledge that the younger adult just doesn't have. So again, it's positioning yourself. And then, oh my gosh, I had Judith Kernick on the show, and she turned me on to the best I don't know, understanding of not your financial portfolio, but your energy portfolio. And I just loved that because as you do age, you have a few things going on. Sometimes you don't have that high energy usually that you did when you were younger, and you need to pace yourself. So you become more discerning about where you're going to spend your time. And the beauty of that is you can get picked up, and hopefully this will get better and easier over the next decade by a corporation 25 hours a week, 30 hours a week. You don't need to be jamming the 40. You know how to get done in a shorter period of time. But you're absolutely right, Rory. We have to help corporations flip the script about having older adults as employees.
Nice. So is that part of what you're doing right now, trying to kind of get that out there that corporations have to change, or is it more, hey folks,
Yeah.
corporations may or may not change. We have to change as the folks who are aging if we're going to remain relevant.
Well, that is such a great question. You know what they say? The riches are in the niches. We have to pick our lane in whatever we're talking about, right?
Right.
So while I am considered a thought leader in the pro aging space, there are real experts about dealing with corporations. dealing with social challenges around ageism. So we have institutional, society, and I'm working on the indoctrinated
Mm.
ageism that and ageist beliefs that we take on that limit us. That said, oh, you shouldn't be doing that at 74. Yeah, what else would my husband be doing? I'm thrilled, and he's on payroll. Come on. And by the way, they still take FICA out when you're on payroll. Just wanted to throw that in.
Some things never
But
change.
I know. But for my lane is to provide representation. So I'm working on helping people get off the couch,
Nice.
get moving into life, finding that's pulling on threads and being okay with just, oh God, that's terrible. Oh, I thought I'd like that. I no, I didn't at all. But also showcasing what some people figured out. Are they working? How'd you figure that out? You're doing this. Why is that lighting you up? How is that fueling your purpose, your passion, and your pocketbook? So that's my lane talking about that. But I'm always ready to throw out the stats regarding corporations. Come on, don't waste generations of talent.
Right.
Bring them on board.
Nice. The and I get that listening to your podcast a lot. That and that explains also sort of the person that you're bringing on. Very often I'll ask folks, how do you decide what guest you're bringing on? What do they need to bring to the table? And it sounds like they need to be telling a story like that because you're trying to
Right.
like lead by example. If they can do it, then my listeners can do it and keep pushing that agenda.
Yes. And gosh, I love that question too, Rory. As a podcast host, and look, I've been at this since 2012. I still make mistakes at bringing someone on I thought would be great, and it goes off sideways. And even though I know how to rein a guest in, sometimes you just can't do it. And it doesn't turn out the way you had hoped. But yes, mostly I want to bring in unique stories that are yet every day, right? I mean, we have our luminaries, and we love the luminaries out there. Jamie Lee Curtis, for example, who are really just so aging out loud and proud and setting a whole new standard. Helen Mirren, all of those. But I want to show people who might have been at a corporate gig. So I had Deborah Cosnett on the show, CPA for 40 years, well known, DC. Okay. When she retired, ended her practice, she recalled that when she was in college, she took some acting classes and loved it. She got some lessons and became a voice actor. Her schedule, she's booked out big time at the age of 72. She got the coaching. You might hear her doing an automobile sales place or all sorts of ads, a museum, all sorts of things, books, children's books, audiobooks. Who would have thought of voice acting, right?
Right.
So, how do people figure things out in transition? One woman had, like you, in her late 50s with an extraordinary tech background, could not get a job when her company had been acquired. And she said, gosh darn it. So she got certified in resumes and helping people get on boards and getting their resumes zhuzhed up, but most importantly, to beat the scanning system, right? Because they have that scanning thing that scans your resume and then it tosses you out from one bad word. And so she figured out, because she's been a gamer, by the way, Rory, she's been a gamer since the 70s. So when she told me she was a gamer, I mean, she's now in her 70s, gamer, I was like, what, bingo? What game? But she's been shooting zombies when she goes, Andy, I've been shooting zombies since we had to use punch cards and mainframes.
Wow. All right.
So those are the kind of examples of people. She's got like one eye, one leg. I mean, sometimes our bodies are falling apart, but it doesn't mean you need to stop contributing.
Of course. Do you find that, I found my sort of next act in self-employment and entrepreneurship. Do you find that most of us, when we get to be, older and, we're having these issues, that that's the direction we sort of should look?
I think you really need to think about it. I've had quite a few folks, experts on the podcast, who talk about how do you make that transition. And I know it's not easy, but there's ways you can learn. And maybe it's not so much you have your own business, right? But you are able to book yourself as a freelancer, as what I call the 1099, the
Yes.
consultant. And so there's ways of doing that. And there's classes you can take. There's a lot of free classes out there as well, but you can also work with executive coaches and find out your pathway for doing that. And then if you're called to be an entrepreneur, I remember one guy told me a story in one of my comments about how he retired early, around just around 60, and he started gardening. And then he saw like, oh, look at all these bees. I think I'll get some hives. So then he got really into the hive thing with bees. And then he's like, well, what am I going to do with all this honey? And the next thing he knew, he had a honey business. So, sometimes things will fall into your lap.
Yeah.
Spoke to another person who people were saying, oh, you should become a landscaper. She's like, yeah, you're so good at it. I love how you're just amazing. She said, okay, that's a great idea. Well, she hated it. It was too isolating, just not a good fit. But at least she pulled on that thread. And that's what I'd love to encourage folks to do. And you can have chapters. You can do something for a year or two and then go on to the next chapter or season or however you want to call it. But keep finding things that are interesting and light you up.
Yeah, I love that. Now, if I can shift a little bit over here, you've got community building is something that we talk about all the time as
Love
podcasters,
it.
as public speakers, whatever it is we're doing off on our own. Community building, community building, community building. It's huge, and everybody hears it, and everybody kind of goes, "Yeah, well, I don't really know what that is, but I know I need it." You have one, and it sounds like it's a pretty prominent one, the New England Podcasters Group. Tell me where that came from and what that is and how you do that.
Oh, thank you for asking. So, as you get older, finding friendships, community gets really hard. First of all, you only have so much time left. So where do you want to spend your time? You become really discerning about that. And so I entered the year 2024 going, I need community. I need some local friends. Okay. How do I do that? And I was checking the Eventbrites and Meetup, which is a great place if you want to go find community. Meetup.com has just got so many great things going on everywhere around the world, but I wasn't finding anything that wowed me. And I had just come back from Podfest, which is the annual conference for indie podcasters, not the fancy schmancy ones that just won awards at the Golden Globes. I'm talking about Rory and me. Okay. And so I was really inspired by that, but I was like, once a year. But I love indie podcasters, quirky, fascinating, whether it's paranormal, true crime, taking care of your body, or building a business. And everybody they're in it. They love it and they're in it. But what happens is you tell your friends and family about your podcast, and either their eyes glaze over or they're like, oh, that's nice. I'm so happy you're happy. They are clueless, right, about what you're doing. And so, having run a monthly event, I thought, well, why don't I do one for podcasters? So I put a little announcement out in the Podfest threads, actually,
Oh,
on Facebook and their Facebook group, and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a New England podcast group. Anybody interested? Join me at the Zoom link. And so they registered, they joined me. We had about 13 people. And I said, what do they think? What do you think? They think this is great. And one of the participants said, and I have the place for you to meet, which is really, that's the hardest part, if you think about it, is who's going to host this monthly in-person
right.
event. And he sat on the board of a local cable access TV facility. And these facilities were making buku bucks for many years. And they're all decked out, TV studios, podcast studios. They've got a lot going on, but now they're not getting that cable revenue anymore. So they're having to think outside the box. So we, were able to get sponsored to have our monthly event at that location with free parking, which is great, and right off the main highways, because I knew I was going to be pulling people in from all the New England states, and it needed to be easy to get to. So that was important to me. And then when you think about launching your own, and I'll be honest with you, Rory, I was doing this very selfishly. I wanted to see people once a month. I needed the connections. I wanted intergenerational relationships. And I knew that, however, sometimes when you throw a party, what happens if no one shows up, right?
Yeah.
It can get a little scary. And I also knew from having a monthly pitch event for founders that you need to pick a day and pick a time and be there consistently at that same time, at that same place. And for me, it was the second Saturday of the month at 12 noon because I knew people driving in from Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island would want to come when there's no traffic.
Right.
And
That's a much bigger deal out there on the East Coast.
yes. And again, for me, it's a good time of day, selfishly.
Nice.
So I asked one of the folks in this little group that I did a test study on. Okay, Angel, I know you love to chat. What do you want to talk about? She goes, oh, I love chatting about monetization for podcasts. I'm like, good, we got that. And I go, Lou, will you promise me you'll be there? He goes, I will be there, Andy. I go, okay, I know there'll be three of us. So I feel good.
Right.
And I also set up what I wanted it to look like. You got to have a story arc no matter what you do, whether it's podcasting with a guest or
Hmm.
with an event. So I knew that I wanted to have a huddle where we got to go around and tell everybody where our name, where we're from, our podcast name and tagline, and a win or a rut row, an oopsie daisy, and oh no. And so that I knew I'd want to spend a portion of the event on and then have a featured speaker and then group photo and networking. So we started in May of 2024. And here's the beauty of when you go and you kick the tires, you see if there's a value prop, that people really want you to solve the problem of isolation and building community. And sure enough, I had 13 people at the first event and it's been growing steadily. And I'm going to just say something about community, why it's so important. In the world of artificial intelligence, AI, we need to look into a real human's eyes. We need to have those side conversations, those hugs, those moments of shared experience as humans as we're on this human journey. The isolation from social media has been too great. And we're in very uncertain times in our country right now. So we need to find ways to come together across all walks of life. And in this case, to help each other grow, not just our podcasts, but as people.
Yeah.
And so what was really fun was that within 2 months, I had a food sponsor, Mopod. I just happened to be talking to Joe Rubin, and he goes, who's buying lunch for all you guys? I go, nobody. You want to? He goes, yes. So they've been our sponsor ever since. And then one of our members has been building websites since 1998. She said, Andy, let me build you a website. I'm like, okay. But what was really funny was last year, that same person, Jenny B of Jenny B Designs, she said to me in January, she goes, okay, Andy, when are we going to get that membership going? And I was like, say what? What membership? I hadn't gotten there myself, right? But she was absolutely right. So I said to everybody at the March meetup of 2025, I go, look, I know as a founder, for anything to have longevity and sustainability, you have to fund it. So here we go. Who wants to come in by May 31st? I'll set this as the annual fee. It's $100 a year. Who's going to, and this will be for forever, who's going to be a part of the founding members? And 20 people signed up immediately.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
and now the membership's been building. And then in June of 2025, I've just been getting so many comments from people watching us have such a good time at our monthly events that I said, okay, I'm going to create an online community companion. And so I called it the Pod Garden because community pod gardens, as you know, everybody's building, but they're looking over the fence going, what you got going and
Right.
helping each other. But also because it's a TV studio that we meet at all the time, our virtual folks have a good experience. Not a great, because in person is in person, but when we go around the room, the camera, we've got the person who works there zooming in with the bona fide TV camera on our faces. And then who's ever presenting, those who are listening in virtually through the Zoom room, as we call it, are involved as much as possible. They can see the speaker, the slides, everything. So we've really got it nailed down to a wonderful experience for everyone.
It sounds brilliant the way you put the whole thing together. You started it all off as no charge to anybody. So
Right.
everybody got to come for free. And so you
Right.
established the value first.
Right.
But then you said, hey, the value's here. You know the value's here. We do need to charge something so that we can keep going.
Right.
Great way to go.
And then I started charging for the event itself because people will show up for the free food, right? You got to
Sure.
have skin in the game. And so, so the Eventbrite became a ticket that people bought for $15. And we still get plenty of those coming in. And then they can kick the tires, see if it's a good fit for them. And if they're interested, then they can become a member. And membership now is $150 a year. And I have featured speakers in the Pod Garden every month as well.
And so if you're a member and you're paying the 150, then you don't have to pay for the event.
You don't. Not
Got
only
it.
that, you get a free ticket every month to bring a buddy,
Oh,
a
look at
pod
that.
pal. How about
Great,
that?
great way to grow it. Wonderful. And then the folks who are online, because there's a distinction here that I want to get to also.
Yes.
Folks who are online, are they paying to be a part of it remotely?
Yes. So to be part of the Pod Garden is $150 a year as well. And they can tune in every month. They get a link to tune in. They're part of all the online learning that we're doing in the Pod Garden. They get discounts. So I've been able to get some really good deals from the, Pod Match, Podfest, Pod Page.
Sure.
Sure, Mike, all of that. So that's for the members as well. But also this community, Rory, as many communities can be if you give them the space. I'm not a talking head, a teacher. I'm I like to call a steward. So I'm the garden steward, the host, the steward. I just make sure everybody's got the space and the place. They have agency, they do their thing. I get goosebumps when I watch everybody collaborating, connecting, lifting everybody up. And there is a welcoming vibe that people talk about all the time. And it's why they drive 2.5 hours sometimes to come to this event
Nice.
because there's that welcoming feeling. And they feel it again also in the pod garden.
Now, I know a lot of folks try and they go right into the online community. Because, a lot of us who are podcasters, I think especially, are not exactly the most social folks out in the world.
Right, right.
There's a security and a safety to being here, with a Zoom call and everything else, or down in my basement, right, with, talking to myself on the computer.
Absolutely.
But so the online aspect of what you do, can appreciate. It brings in another type of person. But what I see more often is people just go straight to the online. So I guess what I'm wondering from you is, with your experience that you've had with this very
Yeah.
successful project, how important was it for you to start with the in person, which few
Key,
people want to do?
key, key, key. I am all in on the in person.
Hmm.
And that is because, and we have great testimonials about the introverts going, I came in, I was scared, and I never felt so welcomed in my life. And yeah, that and brought right in. And I'm talking some serious introverts are a part of our group, okay? They just cannot get enough of it. But also, interestingly, I get that same comment from folks who joined the pod garden. I've never been welcomed like this before. We just have that culture of who are you? Oh, you're amazing. Thank you for joining us. I can't wait to learn all about you. That kind of feeling. And because there's no, it's not like the pressure of a networking event. We're all creators. We're all passionate about what we're doing, and things can fall apart. We're not sure. And what we also love are newbie podcasters. We've helped a significant amount of folks who are interested in launching a podcast. They're all off on episode 20, 50, 60. I mean, they are having a blast. So it's also a great place if you're podcast curious and you want to get off the fence. Rory, you've worked with a lot of people who say, I want to start a podcast, but
Oh yeah.
it's very scary. Um, we help people do that as well as a group. So it's wonderful. And I cannot rave enough, Rory, about the in person. I get so excited preparing for the event. I mean, it's a lot of work. And I get there and I'm so excited to see everyone. Um, and introverts always love it when you give them a job. So I've got someone who greets everybody and makes sure they get their name badges when they get there and all of that. People love to be delegated tasks at an event. But for me, just sitting on the sidelines as an observer, watching everybody. The other thing, if I can just share,
Please.
that delighted me And I learned this because I went live for 3 years, twice a week, interviewing diverse founders from around the world. So I was into edutaining in
Hmm.
this format. And so everybody knew me for my clappers. And so from the first event on, everybody gets a clapper. And
Nice.
honestly, it delights me to see everybody around the room going, with their clapper. And now I don't even have to even have one in my hand. Everybody knows when to clap and do all the things. And when we show up at Podfest, we have our clappers. It's just I don't know. It cracks me up. It really does. I just laugh out loud. And that makes it also just when you bring something like that, may seem a little silly, but it takes the veneer and masks off much faster that people like to put on when they come to an event. They're protective devices.
Sure. I love hearing you talk about it because you're talking about it with just this such joy.
It's joyful. And let me tell you, I've had everything go wrong, including a fire alarm going off in the middle of a featured speaker.
Oh, wow.
We all had to pile out. But I mean, I've had the technology fall apart, and I just go in and just go, look, we're here to connect. And God willing, this will go smoothly. But if it doesn't, it's okay. And so I don't put that pressure on everybody there either, right? That we're
Nice.
all, and a lot of times, like one of my mistakes was created a whole wonderful new part of our event, which is a nice break between the huddle and the featured speaker. And so, accidents and mistakes turn into opportunities.
For sure. Now, is this something that you teach people in terms of like how to make your own community or how to build your own or start one?
No, but I think I should.
I'm wondering. Maybe that's another niche.
I think that would be lovely. I just believe in it so much. And look, these aren't just people from Massachusetts, okay? Folks, when I keep bringing this up, I know, but when you set the date and the time consistently for every month, people know. I mean, I've had people wake up that morning going, I need a fix, or I'm leaving my kids with my husband and I'm going to be there. I need this. Or I just had this horrible thing happen to me. I want to talk to my peers. I want to talk to them. About, what do I do? People will do that. They'll bring a question like, you just provide this consistency that's so important for folks to know that they're there. So they may come twice a year, there may be a once a quarter, but the fact that they drive, even in December, we had the largest turnout in December. Okay, December 13th in the holidays,
Well,
people carved out, including drive time, 4, 5, 6 hours, right, to come to this event. And that shows that there's value in the in-person community.
that's just fantastic. I love it. I think it's a fantastic framework for building things up. It's also just not for everybody, you can tell,
Oh,
because not
yeah.
everybody can just set out to build an in-person community. But I think more people
No.
should try.
Why not? And go to a
Yeah.
few of other communities that you find on Meetup, whether it's photography or gaming or cooking or flower arrangements or things like that.
Yeah.
Jigsaw puzzle people, whatever. You can see how other folks do it, and you can say, how could I do that for myself? And it could be just in your local town.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, I always try to ask a corny question, all my guests.
Oh, I
And
love it,
so
corny.
here we go. Strap on your seatbelt because this is a really, really tough one. But when it comes to now, you already said what you love most about sort of the world of podcasting. Okay. But when it comes to you hosting your podcast, okay, and you doing your own podcast, what is it about that you love the most? And what is it about doing your own podcast that you just absolutely throw it out the window, can't stand, hate the most?
Oh, that is such a good question. Don't Be Caged by Your Age is my sixth podcast. So, what I love is the connection part, is the figuring out who's going to be a good fit, creating the story arc, the questions. I send questions ahead of time to use as a framework for the conversation. But mostly, I just love having that conversation. What I would throw out would be some of the pesky details of in the editing process. Because and I would just have to have somebody clone me because I'm usually the It's usually my words that get tossed out in the editing, but getting it all ready to post and share. So I think even though it's so much easier today to do it, I could have a production team and be very happy.
Great answer. Great answer. You're not alone. If you did it, Family Feud style, top five answers on the board. I mean, editing's almost always
But
number
Rory,
one
can I
answer.
just add another thing that I really hate
Sure.
is coming up with the title because
Really.
I like the eye-catching title, right? Where they're like, "Ooh, stop the scroll" title. But a lot of times that is not going to help increase awareness on your podcast, right?
Right.
And the best way to increase awareness of your podcast is through search engine optimization.
Right.
And I struggle with the title. Oh my gosh, too long, too short. So I'll just throw that out too.
Gotcha. Do you? I hate it, so I still have to ask about it because if I don't, I have maybe 10 or 15 regular listeners that will absolutely bust me out and roast me if I don't ask these questions. So, how do you utilize or do you utilize AI, and what does that do for you
Oh
in
my
your
gosh,
podcast?
saved my life, AI. Chat and I, we're buds. And I have trained my chat to do, and I mean, I'm very clear. And it has picked up my brand, folks, is called Andelicious. It's got my Andelicious vibe completely. But that was because I've given it the right prompts to give me what I want.
Right.
Writing is fine. I do fine. But when you are a busy podcaster, AI is a team member, provided you make sure it's delivering what you want in your tone. And so it just really helps. It helps with show notes. It helps with all sorts of, check out this bio. What do you think? Oh, I love having it create my intro for me because I've done the hard work. I've done the research. I got all this together. They filled out their guest intake form. I've got all the information. I need something snazzy. Now, of course, if it for some reason isn't ideally, or if it's feeling a little too AI, I will of course zhuzh it up with my own good vibes. And you get how I talk, you get how I move, you get my energy. But I think it's a tremendous tool. And one of the best places I've seen it show up, I use Riverside for recording now. I used StreamYard for 6 years, but I shifted to Riverside. They have a magic audio better than Descript, better than anything I've seen out there. I've had people sound like a tunnel, a guest. And when I hit that magic audio apply, we sound like we recorded in an NPR quality studio.
I like your AI voice too.
I
That was
know.
that was very cute. All right. Nice. Okay. All right. Well, I understand that, and thank you for that information. Now, my AI contingent folks are going to be happy that they got to hear that. So,
Well, and of course, we have to
yeah,
remember the beauty of podcasting, Rory, is that we're going from human voice to human ear.
of
So at the
course,
end of the day, you can use AI as a tool to help make your day easier, but you are talking and a real human is listening.
that's right. 100%. I appreciate you saying that at the end too. I think you're just humoring me because I already said I don't like it, but I understand.
Okay.
Thanks for that. No, I get teased a lot about the AI thing, so I understand that.
Yeah.
But you bring up really good points on how to use it and basically to train it for you. I think
Right.
that's the biggest issue. Is people don't spend
Absolutely.
time. They go to the free version, they crank out whatever. You're talking about using it as a tool and really taking advantage
Absolutely.
of it. Yeah.
And giving me the insight. Some days our brains are in a fog and we need some help to, get going. And
Hmm.
sometimes I cannot find that sentence that I'm
100%.
looking for. And when you're doing content creation, you're putting out a lot of written words. But I'll give you an example of how you always have to be training artificial intelligence. Alexa just had an upgrade. And now she's talking like this. And I had to train each one of my Alexa devices. Look, I don't want any preamble. I don't want any of this chattiness. I want the facts, and that's it. And I want it in the original monotone. And, it's the same thing with AI. You have to say, stop it with the embellishment, stop it with the, oh, Andy, you're amazing. I know I'm amazing. I don't need that from you. I need this from you. Okay, well, sometimes I need an Andy, you're an amazing. That's a great idea. Okay, but not that much.
Got it. And not from AI, right? There you go. All right, I love that. I have one more question for you before we kind of wrap things up. Before we do that, though, there's a lot that we've talked about today. So I'm going to make sure that every link I can get for you is in the show notes, of course. But for folks who are out there, they want to find out about you, they want to find out about your New England podcast group, maybe the Pod Garden. How can people reach you? Give me all that good, juicy information.
Excellent. Please visit don'tbecagedbyyourage.com to tune in. If you have somebody you think would be a great guest on the show, ping me. And then if you want to kick the tires, I've got a free ticket for you. Go to newenglandpodcasters.group. And then, of course, shoot me an email, Andy at newenglandpodcasters.group. I'd be happy to give you a ticket. Just come kick our tires virtually, or if you're in New England, come on down.
Love it. All right, perfect.
And I'm on social everywhere, everybody. Andy Ande Lyons, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Who did I miss? Oh well. Not Facebook, sorry.
You're never going to get them all. So not Facebook though.
No.
No, I mean that
No.
sounds like there's a story there. Is there a reason you're not on Facebook, or
No,
you
it
just don't care
just
for it?
I just don't care for that platform.
Okay,
So I focus on Instagram, LinkedIn especially, and I have a very vibrant YouTube channel.
nice. Okay, so it's at Andy Lyons, Ande, and then Lyons, Lyons.
ONS. Yeah,
All right,
connect with me on LinkedIn and then New England
nice
Podcasters Group on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Don't Be Caged by Your Age,
for
wherever you
sure.
tune into podcasts.
Gotcha. I'll make sure that's all in the show notes for us when
Thank
we
you,
get this
Rory.
rolling. You got it. Thank you for everything you've brought today. You've been doing this a long time. I mean, six podcasts and the group and everything that you've taught yourself and learned along the way, and you've been given great advice as we've been going through the episodes. So I appreciate that too, because I know a lot of my podcasters tune in for that kind of thing. As we, wrap this up, though, what is your best piece of advice for podcasters out there who have their own show,
Yeah.
who are just not quite where you are yet?
It's the same thing I told founders. What's your why? Because when you are a creator and putting this level of content and effort out, you need a reason to keep going. What is the purpose behind this? Who are your listeners? What are you delivering to them that will delight them, light their hearts up, and keep them coming back? But also, what will keep you coming back to the podcast? What is inspiring you to do this? And to me, that's so important. Forget the vanity downloads. Always be thinking about the one or two listeners, maybe 20. It's all good. What are you getting out of this? Why are you doing this?
Nice. Beautiful way to end it. I knew you'd wrap us up just perfectly with a bow like that. Thank you so much. All right, folks. Founder of the New England Podcasters Group, host of Don't Be Caged by Your Age, Andy Lyons. Andy, thank you so much for being on here today and sharing everything you did. It's been wonderful.
Rory, thank you. And may I just add, you are one of the most outstanding podcast hosts I've ever experienced in my 13 plus years of podcasting.
Wow. Thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. My goodness. And I didn't pay her for that, folks. So, I mean,
Oh,
that's
no.
unsolicited. Andy,
Rory
thank you.
is double chef's kiss, everyone.
Thank you so much for that. Folks, that's been an absolutely awesome episode of the Podcaster Nation. And the reason why we have such fantastic and powerful podcasters on here with these great messages is because this is the podcast. It's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And folks, I think we definitely proved again yet today that this is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So keep sailing.